Hi, my name is Megan, and this is Everything Lit. And today, I am going to be reading 3 books recommended by my coworkers. First book I'm going to be reading is Falling by TJ Newman. This, my coworker, literally came up to my desk in the middle of the day and handed me this book and said, "You need to read this. It's so good." He apparently couldn't put it down and brought it to work for me to borrow, and I have to give it back to him so he can lend it to his dad to read. So he is just passing this book around. This is a thriller about a pilot whose family is kidnapped, held at gunpoint, and the pilot has to crash this plane in order to save his family. And I've already started it, and we'll talk about it in a second. So this is Mike's recommendation. The next book I'll be reading is The Underground Railroad by Colson Whitehead. This is a recommendation from my friend Kelly. We go to the bookstore together, and then we get lunch, and we hang out and talk, and we really bond over books. She has recommended me one other book that I have read, and that was The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna, and I really enjoyed that. So she's, 1 for 1 on books that I've loved. This follows a young Black woman escaping a plantation and escaping slavery using the Underground Railroad, and that's really all I know, and I don't want to read the back too much. It's a Pulitzer Prize winner, so it's gotta be good. I've never read anything by Colson Whitehead, so I'm excited to see how I jive with his writing. And the third book I'll be reading is Circe by Madeline Miller. Now, this is a recommendation from my coworker / friend Emerson, and he has recommended the 5th season / the Broken Earth trilogy, and I read that and adored it. I absolutely loved it. Didn't think that I would enjoy it as much as I did. This is a recommendation I think tailored to me because he reads a lot more high fantasy. He's also 1 for 1 on recommendations I enjoyed. I have read The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller, so I also have a history with this author and liked her other book. This is about Circe. She is a witch, and it deals with Greek mythology, and she is one of the people that Odysseus meets, and she famously curses his men and turns them into pigs, I'm pretty sure. I've heard nothing but good things about this. I have started Falling by TJ Newman. I'm 80 pages into this. Let me double check. I'm 70 pages in, and my coworker is right. This is nonstop. The first line is... I was taken aback. I didn't know it would start so intense. The first line is, "When the shoe dropped into her lap, the foot was still in it." Yikers. This is about a man, a pilot, and his family is held at gunpoint, and he has 2 choices. He can crash the plane and save his family, or his family dies and he doesn't crash the plane. So it's nonstop. I don't really know how I feel about it yet because I don't love the implication that it's kind of a terrorist attack. It's not even it's a terrorist attack, but I didn't know it was going to be multiple points of view, so that's interesting because you have the pilot. So far we've had the pilot's point of view, we've had his wife's point of view, and we've had a FBI agent point of view, and we've had a one of the flight attendants point of view. That's interesting. I'm liking the action. I'm liking the different points of view. It's very cinematic feeling. What I am not loving are some of the flashbacks are just inserted into the chapter as italic sections, and they're not very fleshed out scenes. It's one of the characters is thinking about this moment, so it's not very in depth. I'm invested. I'm interested to see how it will go. So that's first impressions. I'm liking it, but it could go south depending on how this goes down. Get it? It's a plane. Goes down. Yike. So I'm in the middle of filming my book haul for February, and the heat kicked on, as I'm sure you can hear, but I'm reading this in between so that I am still doing something instead of just sitting here for the waiting for the heat to turn off. So sorry about this clip. The sound's gonna be not great, but this book is bananas. It is bonkers. I'm having such a good time reading it. Like, if you want an absolutely breakneck thriller with twists out the wazoo, this is it. I am 110 pages in. Let's see. Yes, I'm 110 pages in, and something just happened that I literally out loud was like, what? I don't want to spoil anything, but I'm only 110 pages in. I have 100 more pages to go, and so much is happening. My favorite character right now is Jo, one of the flight attendants. I really like her point of view. I really like her as a character, and I think I'm a little bit more invested in her and the storyline of like the flight attendants dealing with the plane full of people and deciding whether or not to tell them that the plane is being threatened. I'm very interested in that storyline. I'm less interested in Theo, the FBI agent who Jo has is related to. He's kind of in danger of being fired when this goes down. I like Carrie, Bill's wife. She's the one being threatened, and their family. I like them and seeing her point of view. Bill, it sounds awful because he's like arguably the main character that like this is happening to, but Bill, I'm not like too invested in him because of course like as soon as he makes a decision on whether his family will die or he crashes the plane, like the story's kind of over and the tension's kind of lost. So he's going to just be in limbo this whole time, which means his storyline, while it is driving everything else, isn't the most exciting. But I had to do a quick update because I am flying through this, pun intended, and I'm hoping to finish it today. It's such a quick read. I might look up some of TJ Newman's other works because I think I saw on Goodreads that they have another book either out or coming out soon. Who knows how this is gonna end? Certainly not me. Okay, I finished Falling. I finished it yesterday and wanted to like sit with my thoughts because this was absolutely nonstop. Like when they say breakneck, they are not kidding. You had no moments to chill, to take a breath. It was thing after thing after thing. You think the attack's over, plot twist, like just insanity. It was sort of realistic, but you could kind of tell that like it sort of wasn't. I liked the characters. I think, were they as well-rounded and developed as they could be? Probably not, but we had enough information to care about them and enough information to care that they were in danger. But I did empathize with the characters. I did feel like worried for them. I wanted them all to live and succeed and for this plane to not crash, and I wanted Bill's family to live. So it accomplished what it needed to in order for me to like get the most out of it, you know? So I really enjoyed this. I think I'm going to give it 4 stars because the only drawback really was, there are kind of 2 drawbacks and the reason it didn't get 5 stars. One, the like villain or the people who are forcing this decision on Bill and his family. Of course, they had to be from the Middle East. Like, you have to have a villain, but it's such an easy, I don't want to say it's such an easy out, but it is such an easy way out to just pick, like, oh yeah, someone who was involved in, like, the Middle East and I'm part of the Iraqi wars, and like because of our involvement over there, because we drew out, whatever. I didn't love that. They could have done anything with it. It doesn't need to be someone from the Middle East. Was that storyline handled with care? I think so. The bad guys were not like demonized. They were not just like bad guys that need to be stopped at all costs. I think there was empathy in the writing of those characters, and that that can make a difference. Still didn't love it. The other thing is contributing to this not being a 5-star was the ending did kind of push it a little bit for me. When we find out what the target is that they want to crash the plane into, and then like that area of the world's response, just it was pushing it a little far into the corny, cheesy category, which it was kind of skirting around. It was doing okay, and then that just, you know, took it down a notch. I liked that it was multiple points of view, and we got to see this from all angles. So, Mike, good recommendation, and I'm interested to read their other book because their second book comes out in 2023, and it is about a plane that sinks into the ocean and people are trapped, and so they have to do like a rescue dive to get them. But now I gotta go return this to Mike so he can lend it to his dad. All right, second book, Circe by Madeline Miller. This was recommended to me by a friend at work. I think in the intro I mentioned that this coworker already has a track record of recommending really good books. He recommended the 5th season series, loved that. It was so good. And he listens to a lot of audiobooks. So I'm listening to Circe on audio. And really, I'm only on chapter 3. I'm 25 pages in. First impressions, I really like it. I like the style it's written in. I like the way Circe is already presenting herself and presenting her narrative about being a child and being naive and not really understanding what a mortal is. That question has come up like twice already in the first 25 pages. Like, what is a mortal? I think that is going to be a really interesting thing to explore in this world of gods. Like, what is mortal, what is human. So audiobook's good. I will update you when I have more to say. I just wanted to give another update on Circe because I am flying through this. According to the audiobook, I'm 53% in. So physically, I'm on chapter 16, page 207. I am adoring this. Absolutely adore it. The writing is wonderful. It's so, I don't know how to explain the way the writing is so grand, but so simple. And Circe's voice is so clear. And I love the journey we are seeing her take through life and the lessons she's learning. And like, it's rough and it's hard and it's sad, but oh my gosh, it's so good. And you just want her to triumph. And I feel like the ending might make me cry. Here's the thing. The myth of Circe, Vino, you really gotta do that right now? So here's the thing. The myth of Circe, or what I know of Circe, is just from the Odyssey, where she turns his men into pigs, right? And then he stays there for like several years. I didn't know anything of Circe other than that. I didn't know she was a descendant of Helios, the sun god. I didn't know really anything. The part that I got to, we're at the 50% mark, and she has just met Odysseus, and their banter, their back and forth is so good. There was a bit earlier about Daedalus and Icarus, and I loved her interactions with Daedalus and the way she is reading people. It's just wonderful. Absolutely. I feel like the coworker who recommended this, I can absolutely trust his taste, because this is book 2. Well, technically he recommended a whole series. So this is book 4 that he has recommended that I am just loving. The writing just gets me. Like, okay, the part that I just finished, these lines, oh my god. So she's just met Odysseus, right? Here's what she says. She says, "He was another knife. I could feel it. A different sort, but a knife still. I did not care. I thought, give me the blade. Some things are worth spilling blood for." Like, oh my god, what good writing. Like, what? Oh, it's too good. Quick update on Circe. I am about 76% in. I will hopefully finish it tomorrow. So I'm about 292 pages in. And today's reading was a little rough. I was definitely listening to the audiobook at one point with my face like, do we have to? There have been a couple birth scenes that are just a bit brutal, a bit gory. Gory is not even the right word. They're just intense and descriptive and painful sounding. And I have some like just personal issues with pregnancy and birth, and those scenes were not, I was not having a good time. I still like the book overall. I still think it's interesting, but it has gone downhill a little bit for me just because of those birth scenes, but also low key, like part of the turn. I actually like Googled one of the myths that is being discussed in the section I'm in, because I just wanted to know, one, where that myth came from, and like I accidentally spoiled myself for something that happens in the book. That's my own fault, but I didn't love that section. This might, right now I'm thinking this is a 4-star. Like, all books start at a 5-star and then they slowly drop, so right now it's a 4-star. We'll see if they can bring it back in the end. I don't know, those birth scenes were just like not it for me. All right, so I'm almost 100 pages in to the Underground Railroad, and one of the reasons I've put off updating, because I like to update within the first 50 pages, is because I'm not loving it. I'm not sucked in. It kind of feels like a homework assignment right now, because like I know that it is an important work, but I also, my reading taste in the past several years has leaned toward escapism. I want happy things. I want to know that everything's going to be okay in the end. I want romance. That is why I think one of many reasons why the romance genre seems to have just absolutely exploded in the last 5 years. The amount of romance books being traditionally published now, and not just like small paperbacks, but like every kind of romance, because people just want escapism. They want the surety of a happy ending, and this won a Pulitzer, which probably means everyone dies, because those are the kinds of books that win awards. Because how can life have meaning without death? Which I understand, but like, I don't always want to read about that. Sometimes life has meaning because it's happy and it's not suffering, you know? What is this book about? It is about, so far, it's about Cora, and she is a slave. She gets invited to run away by another slave who grew up. So this takes place in Georgia, or it starts in Georgia, and he grew up a little further north, and he was a slave, but his family was taught to read, and they were told that they would be set free when the old lady died. That was not the case. They were just sold by her relatives. And so he invites Cora to escape, and then chapter 2 follows a person who hunts down runaway slaves. I will say, this book is not glorifying in the abuse. It's not making a spectacle of the suffering. It is not, I can't think of the word I'm looking for. Glorifying? No. It is not written with the idea to kind of titillate with the violence. 'Cause, you know, there are books like that where it's like violence for violence sake, and it like glories in the gore of like blood spatter and whatever, and that works for like horror, but not if you're trying to be sensitive to a historical subject. Like, these things happened to people and it's horrifying. So it is unflinching though. It just states facts. Like, yeah, they whipped the skin off her back. Like, okay, cool. Love reading about that. It's about slavery, and it's super important. It's important that this was written, but that doesn't mean I want to read it right now. I'm also like kind of slumpy, so this is not helping me get out of the reading slump, you know? That's why I haven't updated, because I'm just kind of reading it to read it and not really enjoying it. I'm listening to the audiobook at work, and I do like the audiobook. I am able to bump it up to like 2.25 speed though, so the narrator I think talks really slow. My friend who recommended this does tend to have more literary leaning well, not necessarily literary leaning tastes, but her tastes are, she leans toward the popular. And that's not a bad thing. She made me read The Nightingale, which was fantastic, but it was also a sob fest. And she's having me read this. And I'm expecting it to be a sob fest in the end. And I'm not looking forward to that. And so I think that's, so I'm struggling with this. What if I just filmed with this absolutely serial killer lighting? I just wish that I could turn these lights on separately, you know? Because I kind of have it like a halo right now. But I have to keep my head right here, otherwise horrendous. So let's talk about this video idea. So I started filming this video in February, and I just never filmed final clips for either of these books. I have the thumbnail ready, I have most of the video edited, and I just needed to film. And I have been trying to figure out, like, why is it so hard for me to sit down and talk about these last two books? And I think it's because I have complicated feelings about them. So let's get into it. Final thoughts on Circe. I finished this a month and a half ago, 2 months ago at this point. I really loved it. What I loved most is Madeline Miller's writing, and that is what I loved most about The Song of Achilles. It is lyrical without being overdone, and it is evocative and emotional without being purple prose. Like, it is so beautiful and fits the aesthetic, fits the idea of a Greek myth so well. That is what I love most about this book. I love the writing, and I do love the depth with which Circe's character is explored. She is allowed to be human as much as she is a goddess, and that is one of the central ideas of this book, is what makes a human human, because all of the gods make fun of Circe for being too soft, for being too sweet, for being too empathetic. All things that are considered weaknesses to them, but actually make her very strong. My complicated feelings come from my kind of issues, I guess you'd call them, with like pregnancy and motherhood and the way that society looks at that role and the way that women are treated based upon their ability to bear children. And for a lot of this book, Circe does not want children. That just felt good to see in a female character. And then and this is spoilers, so put spoilers on the screen, when she gets pregnant with Odysseus's son. And I Googled the myth. I was like, is this real? In the myth, she does have 3 children by Odysseus. So I get that, like, Madeline Miller wasn't entirely rewriting the myth. In a book that really centers female autonomy and making your own choices, the way the section with Circe having a son was treated, I don't know how to explain it properly, and maybe that's why I've been putting this off. For a portion of it, she really talks about, as Circe, alone on this island, talks about how difficult it was to raise this child and how sometimes she maybe regretted doing this and that he was the most difficult thing she's ever done. But then as he's like 14 and kind of dismissive of her and wants to help these sailors, and she has like stopped turning men into pigs at this point because no one comes to the island. Like, there was something about that, and the way that she didn't, reassert her role as the adult, it just felt weird. And then when she is at the height of her power and goes and does this like mythical impossible thing on behalf of her son to protect her son, intellectually I understand it's showing her power and her strength that is hers, and it is not taken away by the fact that she does it in support of her son. But at the same time, I want stories where women are powerful for themselves or for other women or something. I'm tired of women being powerful and strong and taking care of men, whether it be sons, whether it be boyfriends, whether it be husbands, whether it be brothers. I'm tired of that dynamic. I want women for women. Like, I don't know how to explain it. So the last 150 pages really put me off a little bit. I was frustrated by it by the way that this story played out. I will say it was maybe a 100-page span. I did love the ending. I love that, you know, her son went off and she still got to have her story and have her power. It was so good in so many ways, but I think I did give this 5 stars, but that one thing just really brought it down for me. In that, maybe on Goodreads I did give it 5 stars, but in my heart it's like a 4.5. Like, it's not perfect. So those are my final thoughts on Circe. So then, final thoughts on The Underground Railroad by Colson Whitehead. I have been thinking about this a lot, and I think this is just not the type of book I gravitate towards anymore. It is reminiscent of Gulliver's Travels, where basically Cora is traveling where things are awful in different ways, but it's all awful, and she survives and like gets away in the end. And there are these beautiful passages where the narrative goes like forward in time, like someday she'll be sitting in a kitchen in New York telling her children about blah blah blah. So overall, throughout the story, you get the security and the idea that Cora makes it through all of these trials to a place where things are better, where things are maybe easier, hopefully easier, but there is the idea that everything will continue to be a struggle in different ways. It was a tough read, and it takes a certain fortitude. This is not a book that I think people enjoy, right? It's a tough read. It's tough topics. As much as I liked the characters and felt for them and, you know, teared up for them, it's not a book you enjoy. It's not happy. It's not fun. It's a learning experience. As much as I appreciate those lessons and learning more about the history of how America as a country and as the government has been awful to Black people in every way, experimenting on them, torturing them. That's another reason it's hard to talk about this. Like, there's an Avenue Q song that's everyone's a little bit racist, and that's what I think of. Like, you're not going to escape it. It's so ingrained in our culture that I don't want to say something offensive without meaning to. Am I the audience for this? Like, is this to educate white women? I just don't know. So that's one of the reasons I've been putting off the final thoughts on this. It is a type of book that I like. Historical fiction, literary fiction. It does have this imaginative, you know, the Underground Railroad is actually a train and a railroad. Don't remember, I think I gave this 4 stars. Maybe I gave it 3 because I recognize the merit. I recognize that this is good, but it just wasn't something I wanted to read in the moment. I think I've talked about it a little bit on my channel before, but since 2016, really, I am looking for escapism in my books. I am looking for over the top in any way, whether that's like thriller, romance, like cozy mysteries. I feel like I'm not explaining this right. In the end, I would recommend this to people who are interested in this kind of story, who want to read this, but I did not enjoy it. Sorry if like my thoughts are not clear on this because I just struggle to talk about it by myself. You know, like I would like to have a conversation about it. So maybe I'll reach out to the friend who recommended it and we can talk about it and I can ask what she liked. Final thoughts on this Coworkers recommend video. Falling, which I don't have anymore, was lent to me by a friend and kind of started this whole video because he literally came up to my desk and was like, this book is insane, you have to read it. It was insane and I enjoyed it. I'm glad that he brought it to my attention. My other coworker, fantastic recommendations all around. This is the second book that he's recommended me that I've really enjoyed. The other was the Broken Earth trilogy. Fantastic. So I trust his taste in recommending me books. And the third one, my friend Kelly recommended this. I think we do have slightly different tastes because we have been talking about romances that we've read recently. I think it really depends on the genre because she and I gravitate towards different types of stories. So if you've made it this far, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening to me ramble about uncomfortable things. If you like this video, you can click the like button. You could subscribe to me to see what other recommendations I read. Or really, you can do whatever you want. And I'll see you next time.